Hey guys, Alex from Board Game Co over here, and today I am doing a very, very sadly negative review of Reichbusters. Reichbusters is a game that I have been super excited about. This was in my top 5 anticipated Kickstarters that I have coming in. I'll link to that video up above. It is a game that I was super excited to like. I was super excited to get. It looked visually appealing, visually incredible. Thematically, it seemed great. The gameplay looked like it would just be absolute fun, combining the stealth of a game like V Commandos with the run and gun and the excitement of a zombicide, Cthulhu Death May Die. It's, combining those genres of stealth and management along with just rolling dice and blasting through bad guys. Unfortunately, it is not a game that will be staying in my collection. I feel terrible about it. It was a game I really wanted to like, but the problem is after going through multiple games, I consistently find myself trying to justify reasons why I should keep it rather than going with the fact that I just don't want to play it. It's simultaneously something I want to pull out. I want to go through the next mission. I want to have a blast, playing it, but then I don't. And it goes against the way I manage my collection to keep a game because I want it. Rather, I keep games because they're good. I keep games because they are amazing. I keep games because they scream play me and that they excel in the categories they are in. And this is not that. It is not a bad game, in my opinion. It's just not a great game. There are a lot of things about it that are fun and thrilling and feel like you did something cool and strategize and whatever, and there are a lot of things that feel like the game should have been better, like the game deserves better. So if you are someone who has a copy of Reichbusters coming in, if you are someone who has a pledge coming in, don't be too bummed out by this video. You may play this game and like it. There are things to like in this game. For me, I just find it doesn't stand up well against the competition in this category, both through a combination of the way the game is and my personal preferences, as well as clunkiness and fiddliness that didn't need to be in the game. And some of the stuff you can kind of house rule or adjust. Others might be a little harder to. So let's jump into it. And to begin with, disclaimer that any mistakes I make, I apologize for. The rulebook is not well formatted. Even things I knew were in the rulebook when I was trying to find it later, I had to jump through different areas to try to find where they were. So while I believe I am playing this correctly, there were a few areas that were lacking clarification or I just couldn't find clear answers on. So if that affects this review, I apologize in advance. Going from there, why do I not like this game? And I think it really comes down to a few reasons. The first I already touched upon, which is the fiddliness of the game. Unnecessary fiddliness to be precise. What I mean by that is every game has rules. That's inherent, that's obvious. That is the nature of the hobby we are in. And rules are meant to add strategic depth. The whole point of a rule is that it adds strategic depth. The difference between Forbidden Island and a game like Gloomhaven lies in the rules. It lies in the fact that the more you add rules and options and choices, the more it adds reasons to actually engage in a game that you are making choices in. And choices are what distinguish a game from playing War or Candyland, games that have no choices whatsoever. The problem with rules is that the rules that don't add depth, rules that just add clunkiness are terrible for a game, and they should always be streamlined out. And it doesn't feel like they did that in this case. It doesn't feel like they play tested this enough, or perhaps they just play tested with people who got blinded. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wrong. That's also possible, of course. But they have many rules in this game that feel like there are rules for the sake of rules, and they don't feel like there are rules that add anything. Now I'm just going to give a few examples, but there are more. I'm just going to give 3 examples that I have just offhand. The first is piles of loot. In the game, you have a variety of, I don't know if you'll focus on this, so let me just put this on my hand. In the game, there are a variety, it's not focusing well, I apologize. In the game, there are a variety of loot tokens. Tokens that will both start on the map and will be dropped by various people throughout the game as you fight the baddies. The problem is there's like 7 or 8 different types of loot, and then you flip it over and it shows another thing. Meaning from the front, instead of just putting down loot tokens and flipping them, or instead of having 2 or 3 tiers of how good the loot is and flipping those, they have 7 different piles of loot. and then you drop them when you need to and you flip them. They could have easily streamlined that to 2 or 3 types. There is absolutely no reason to have 7. And again, just to be clear, this is from the back. Once you pick up the loot, I understand you have ammo, you have grenades, you have vests. That's totally fine. But from the back that goes on the board, they have 7 different piles that go there. That is an element of management and fiddliness that is completely unnecessary and does not add value. That is the first example. The second example is they have these, like over here, I don't know if you won't be able to see it that well from the camera, but over here they have these various elements, these cages and these side rooms, meaning that the map has various elements that you can go to or aspects that you can explore that you never would ever want to. That meaning they are hidden behind doors that have higher levels of stealth checks that you'd have to get through, and they don't actually have anything good behind them. They have these extra doors here that add nothing to the map. They add nothing to the reason you would ever go there. And before you answer, if you know the game, that, well, those doors are there just so you can have a patrol pop out behind it, well, why is it a level 3 door? Why are you hiding a completely useless element behind a level 3 door if the bad guys are just going to go through it and the bad guys don't care about the level of the door? There seems to be this element of map design that doesn't fully evaluate why players would choose to go there, and kind of just, they needed to flesh out the map, so they threw things around there. It doesn't feel like the maps were play tested to validate the different options players would want to take, and instead the maps give you an ideal option and just fleshed out the map from there. The third example in terms of fiddliness is the decks. You have these player decks over here. Okay, these are the player decks over here. You go through, draw your cards, you draw a bunch of cards, and then when it's time to reshuffle, you pick a card, discard it from the game, and you get left with the rest of the cards here. Basically, you're removing a card. Your deck is slowly going to have cards removed as you play the game, kind of like Gloomhaven. And it feels like they may have just done it because of Gloomhaven. Because if you actually plot out the number of rounds you have in the game and the whys and whens of drawing cards, you would never, ever go through that deck. You will never lose all the cards. This is just a rule for the sake of having a rule, and it adds a fake feeling of loss or tenseness that is completely imaginary. Anyone who's watching this video, if you have ever come close to going through your deck, if you've ever gotten down to no cards, let me know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I plotted it out over the course of the most rounds you'll ever have in this game is 12, and that's not accounting for the fact that most games are less than 12, and most games you'll lose rounds because of the way the noise system works in this game. And the amount of times you'll have to shuffle your deck to lose all the cards, it is a completely fictional rule that just adds text and memory to the rulebook with no gameplay benefit whatsoever. It does not impact the way you play the game. That is just fiddliness. And there are more examples. I just picked 3 for the sake of this video, but there are more examples of things that felt like they were rules for the sake of having rules and did not feel like they were rules for the sake of adding strategic depth. And that, I believe, it has to come from a lack of playtesting. And keep in mind, this might be one of the many casualties of a Kickstarter timeline. When you produce a game and you have a certain timeline before people start complaining and getting upset, that is a casualty of the Kickstarter system. That is a lack in the benefits of Kickstarter. It forces people into these timelines that don't necessarily mirror reality. Now, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if they needed more time to playtest. I don't know if they just wouldn't have either way. I don't really know what's going on. The second reason I don't like this game is that it often feels like you are being punished for playing the game. Now, what I mean by that is I don't mind games that overwhelm you with force. I don't mind losing to a horde of zombies taking me over. I don't mind an Elder One in Cthulhu Death May Die drawing a card that unfortunately kills a character and we have to start. I don't mind losing. Losing and difficulty are not my problem. But I don't like it when the choices I make feel like I'm then being punished. Meaning, throw the bad things at me all you want. Spawn a bunch of bad guys. I don't really care. But don't make it so that the decisions I have to make force me between playing the game optimally and playing the game to be punished. The noise system in this game, just for context, the game is basically divided into 2 phases. a pre-alarm phase and a post-alarm phase. And the game is different. The gameplay is different between those two phases. Just from things like which cards you draw from, things like whether you can choose the order of your heroes or whether the game randomizes the order of your heroes. And that, by the way, I love that. I will say this goes back to, there are different elements of this game that I do love, and I'll cover more of those soon. But one of the things I love is I love the switch between pre and post-alarm of the randomization of whether you get to choose or the game chooses the order of your heroes. It really feels like the difference between control and chaos, and it, again, thematically this game is great. But the problem is that in the first half of the game, in the pre-alarm phase, there is very minimal actual strategy in terms of ways to cleverly navigate the map or perform things that really feel like you're doing something stealthy. Contrasted with V Commandos, which does. V Commandos really feels like you are making choices that will impact whether or not you stealthily make your way through the board. In this game, it kind of just comes down to anything you do is going to involve rolling dice. You want to attack someone? Well, unless it's with a knife or bow, you're rolling dice. Want to open a door? You're rolling dice. Flip a loot token? Rolling dice. All the aspects of stealth in this game just come down to rolling dice and hoping for the best, which is not the end of the world in and of itself. But it gets worse because this goes back to the fiddly part. In an ideal world, if you manage it well, you're just going to consistently be drawing, because every time you roll dice, you're almost always going to be drawing a card from it. Now, if you roll low enough, you won't actually do anything. But that means if it works well, you'll go through half the stealth deck, the noise deck, and just be drawing cards and doing nothing. It's a sequence of the way they handled it I felt was very poorly done and goes back to the fiddliness. The flip side is if you actually are failing noise tests, then you're going to be overwhelmed with patrols and forced into the only way you can actually deal with it, meaning strategically there are very minimal options available to you as soon as people are on the table. You effectively have to deal with them right away because you have these suspicion tokens that a room becomes, once you have a guy in a room, you have a bad guy in a room, you put a suspicion token, and then once they see you, they become alert, you flip it, and then they will start, once they are alert, they will start advancing the turn tracker faster, accelerating you into the post-alarm phase, effectively depriving you of essential turns that are required to finish the game, meaning the games are fairly tight and you need those turns, you need that time. So it's not just an issue of they will accelerate you into the post-alarm phase, it's an issue of they will burn through your available turns, and that forces you into a strategy that's going to be the exact same every single game. There aren't really choices to be made here. The effective strategy comes down to ensure all your heroes stick together. That is essential because the sequence of play that they have designed here is that you have no real time. As soon as a guard is spotted, they will see you, they'll become alert, then they'll become suspicious, then next turn they'll become alert, and then you start losing turns. So as soon as you see someone, you have to effectively have a hero prepped to go after your last hero and kill them. And depending how many people you reveal, when you reveal a single patrol, you can kind of deal with that, but when you reveal larger groups of people, it becomes harder and harder. But your heroes have to stay together. That's one. You will lose the game if they don't. You don't have a choice. This isn't like Zombicide where you can say, why don't you 2 heroes go here and these 4 heroes will go here, and that adds an element of choice, of strategy, of risk and reward. In this game, if your heroes don't stick together, you will almost certainly burn out of turns and just lose the game. So your heroes strategically have to stick together, unless you're just trying to ramp up the difficulty and hope for the best. But strategically, they should stick together. This isn't a risk versus reward. They should stick together. From there, you want your heroes to have equipment like knives and bows, if possible, and then just try to take people out stealthily. So you go through the exact same sequence every single time you reveal a character. This isn't a degree of, should we run away, should we engage, should we do this, should we do that? This is no. As soon as a patrol is revealed, as soon as bad guys are on the map, you immediately have to go through the same pre-programmed sequence every single time. When I say pre-programmed, I don't actually mean the game programs it. I mean it's basically the same set of choices. There's no real options on the board of how to go through the first half of the game. It's all pre-sequenced, rolling dice, seeing what happens, and then that's it. There are very minimal choices. The only real choices you have in that half of the game is which cards you choose to play and burn through, and even then it really just comes down to playing the one that will work for the scenario. Very rarely did I feel like there was a real choice, and when those choices exist, they usually come down to, should I just say screw it and play this card because it will clear the room? I'll lose 2 turns on the turn track because I'm playing this symbol or that symbol, but maybe it's worth it because the alternative is we hope for the best across multiple killings. It was very rare that I felt rewarded for making a choice in this game. Ultimately, I generally just felt punished for doing the thing that you have to do in the game. There were cool moments. There are things about this game that I like. There are things about this game that I enjoyed. So for instance, I covered the pre versus post alarm. Love it. That really does an amazing job of simulating the chaos that I would want. I love that aspect, the lack of turn order choice. I like the fact that there were times when you played a card or a sequence of cards that really felt like you had an incredibly cool turn. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't really feel like there were many interesting choices to be made. It's just you played the card and it was a cool turn. It's like, oh, look, I played my special ability, my unique feat for my character, and then I followed it up with these 2 other cards, and then you played this card, and we cleared a whole room of 8 Nazis in one shot. It feels cool. No real choices to be made. It's kind of just the move that made sense at the time, but it does feel very cool. I love the miniatures and the art of the game. I love the thematicness of the game. It really feels very thematic. I like the fact that there were times, and this comes after the strategy, there were times in the game where I was able to manipulate the stealth system to specifically trigger a patrol that would open a door. Effectively meaning that the way patrols work is they appear through doors and they open them for you. And so there are times where you might feel that the attacking of a bunch of guys is easier or better than having to go through a bunch of doors and figure things out. There were times where you could make a few strategic choices that actually felt like they mattered. The rest of the game, across the missions I played, I did not play all 6 missions, the rest of the game felt like you were just going through the obvious move, rolling dice, hoping for the best, and that's it. I did not feel rewarded for playing this game. I felt like I was struggling to like this game. Every single turn was alternating between this is just annoying versus, ooh, that was fun. Let's go through one more round. Let's play one more mission. And I was going back and forth like that. And after a few games of going back and forth like that, I came to the conclusion that I have too many games that I like that don't force me into trying to struggle to like it. I have too many games that I love, that are enjoyable, that I don't need to make those decisions. Reichbusters feels like there might be an incredible game behind this. It feels like if it was tweaked properly, there might be promise here for an incredible game. The problem is I think it needs a drastic revision to the noise system. I think it needs a drastic revision possibly to the map design, to some of the elements in the game that actually afford you choice and not just pre-programmed sequencing of let's go through this. I want to make decisions in my board games. I don't want to play Candyland. I don't want to play War. And I don't want to feel punished for making those decisions that had to be made. I will not be playing Reichbusters again. I will be trading/selling this copy, and if they come out with another Kickstarter, I will be holding off until the reviews come in. Probably. I'm a bit of an addict, so who knows. But I look forward. I hope that this line continues. I hope that there is enough of a reason to modify the game. I hope there is a Reichbusters 2.0. I mean, Zombicide had multiple seasons, and Black Plague was much better than the original Zombicide. I hope that there continues to be more Reichbusters, that enough people like this game, but I hope enough people don't like this game that they tweak and modify it to become a better game. And I think it needs fairly large tweaks. I think there's a good core here. There's a good game somewhere in here, but this is not currently a good game. Or I should rephrase that. This is not currently a great game. It can be satisfying. If somebody says, hey, you know what? I kind of just enjoyed playing this game. I totally believe it. There were elements of the game that were enjoyable. There were elements of the game that were fun. And there were elements of the game that I want to go back to. But in between those elements, there was too much that I didn't like. Trust me when I say I am incredibly sad about this. This game went from being one of the games I was most looking forward to it's now the inspiration for a new list I'll be doing of top 10 games I really wanted to like and didn't. I apologize in advance if I was a bit of a buzzkill here. I know how it feels to be excited about a game and be let down. I know how it feels to be excited about a game and see someone else give a negative review. That's equally as annoying. And you look for all the reasons they're wrong. You look for those reasons. You're like, no, he messed up this rule, therefore he's inherently wrong, or he doesn't like this kind of game to begin with, so he's wrong, or he only gave it he only played 3 missions. He should have played all 6 missions, so he's wrong. You look for those reasons. I've done that. When Z Garcia put out his review, I saw his rules mistakes, and I said, oh wow, the guy made a whole bunch of mistakes in the rules, so he probably played it wrong, and that hurt his experience. Or, oh wow, Z Garcia doesn't really like these kinds of games, so why is he reviewing it? I looked for those too. I understand where you're coming from, so if you do the same to this video, I totally get it. I do not share the harsh opinion he does. I think that it is a game that will be fun for some people, but will be clunky, fiddly, and not rewarding enough for others, and I am unfortunately in that latter category. I apologize, like I said, this video is brought to you by Board Game Co. You can subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, expect more reviews like this. I mean, most of my reviews, I don't know, I like games. I like games. I am sad that I don't like this one, and it's unfortunate, but if you want to know more games that I either like or don't like, or Kickstarters I'm backing, or any of that kind of stuff, subscribe, like, notify, comment, let me know. If you've been playing this game and you've been enjoying it, comment down below, let other people know. As much as my opinion should be a data point in your decisions, other people's opinions should too. If I get a host of comments saying, no, I like this game, someone else might change their mind. That could be helpful. Or heck, if enough of you love the game, maybe I'll try it again, who knows. Until next time, I'm Alex from Board Game Co., and have a good one.